This is a time of the year when every contribution really counts. So if you made a pledge recently, be sure to get your pledge slip back to us with your check just as soon as you can to WGBH Boston 02134. And if you haven't made a pledge or a contribution, do so now before the year ends. There may be a tax advantage to you in doing so. Our telephone number for your pledge is 492-1111. It's a Boston number. Call right now. And thank you very much from all of us at WGBH.
Happy Hanukkah from all of us at Channel 2. Today's Japan is produced in Tokyo by NHK, the Japan Broadcasting Corporation, the sole public broadcaster in Japan. It is seen each weeknight throughout Japan. NHK is solely responsible for its content. WGBH Boston is coordinating U.S. broadcast of this program so American viewers can watch news programs from other parts of the world. Today's Japan is made possible by NEC, a major producer in the field of computer and communications technology.
Today's Japan, with daily news from NHK Tokyo.
"155 Japanese who had been held in Iraq are back in Japan. Due to a strong whirlwind, 78 people are injured and 1,000 houses damaged. And Japan's longest straw rope adorns the main hall of a shrine in Fukuoka. Good evening, it's Wednesday, December 12th. I'm Karuna Shinsho with Today's Japan, coming to you from the studios of NHK Tokyo. 155 Japanese have returned to Japan from Iraq, where they had been held hostage or not allowed to leave the country for 4 months. With this group's return, all of the Japanese who were held hostage in Iraq since August have now reached Japan.
Of those who returned to Japan today, 78 had been held hostage at strategic sites in various parts of Iraq. 63 had not been allowed to leave the country. 14 are staff members of the Japanese embassy in Kuwait.
嬉しいです。早く家族に会いたいです。もう今すぐ、もうそこに待ってると思うんですけども、今すぐ出たいと思います。金しか出してないし、下手を食ってるわけじゃないのに、一番最後まで人質として残されたっていうことについてですね、やはりイラク側が我々日本に対して特別な感情を持ってたんじゃないかなと。日本これからこういう目に遭うのは何回か可能性あるんで、こういう二度とこういうことを繰り返さないように、政府の方も対応を講じてほしいと思ってます。
At one point, the number of Japanese hostages reached as many as 213, but all of them have now returned to Japan. Only 51 Japanese remain in Iraq. They are not hostages, but have not yet been able to leave the country. These people, however, are also expected to return to Japan in the near future.
Well, Iraq's hostage-taking has raised questions about crisis management within the Japanese government, specifically the way the government acts to protect Japanese citizens abroad in the event of international conflicts, and the way Japanese embassies gather necessary information.
When Iraq invaded Kuwait, the Japanese government was initially optimistic about Japanese being able to leave Iraq. The government stated that since the Iran-Iraq war, Japan has been adopting its own diplomatic policies, which differ from those of Europe and the United States, by maintaining friendly ties with Iraq. Nevertheless, A large number of Japanese ended up being held hostage by Iraq, and those in Kuwait were also unable to leave. Partly due to the U.S. call for concerted action on the hostage release issue, the Japanese government took almost no overt action to facilitate the release of Japanese hostages. But many relatives of Japanese ex-hostages are dissatisfied with the Foreign Ministry's handling of the affair, which they consider was inept.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Toshiki Kaifu said that he plans to compile a new set of measures designed to help the United Nations bring about peace in the Middle East. Kaifu said he would do so after acquiring the consent of the opposition parties, notably the Socialists. He made the remark during a session of the Lower House Budget Committee today.
Shozo Harada of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party asked the government about its plan to work out new measures to help the United Nations efforts toward peace in the Middle East. Kaifu replied that it is regrettable that the Peace Cooperation Bill was scrapped during the last extraordinary session of Parliament, but said he believes a consensus has been formed on the need for Japan to cooperate with the international community, not only financially, but also in providing manpower. Kaifu added that the ruling LDP, Kome, and Democratic Socialist parties agreed to discuss new measures to facilitate Japan's cooperation with the United Nations. He also stated that the Socialist Party has put forth a proposal for the setting up of a United Nations Peace Cooperation Organization. The Prime Minister said he wants to see a new bill enacted as soon as possible, with the understanding and cooperation of the opposition.
Prime Minister Kaifu has said the government will keep defense spending within 1% of the nation's gross national product for the next 5-year defense build-up program starting in fiscal 1991. Kaifu's statement was made at a meeting of the Lower House Budget Committee today. Political observers say Kaifu is stressing the government's intention to hold spending as low as possible in the next defense build-up program. This is in response to the thaw in East-West relations. The government is studying concrete ways of offering food aid to the Soviet Union to coincide with Foreign Minister Taro Nakayama's scheduled visit to Moscow in early January.
Until now, Japan has been cautious in its attitude toward food aid for the Soviets due to the problem of the northern territories now held by the Soviet Union. Japan has adhered to a policy that the territorial issue should be resolved before economic aid is given to Moscow. However, responding to reports on the food crisis in the Soviet Union, the government is now studying ways of sending emergency food supplies as soon as possible to ensure adequate food for residents of major Soviet cities. The government is also looking at using the loan system provided by the Export-Import Bank of Japan in order to launch a full-scale food aid project in early January. Ahead of the government aid program, 3 Japanese dairy makers have decided to donate some 8 tons of powdered milk and 24,000 packs of baby food worth 30 million yen, or some 230,000 US dollars. They are expected to deliver a list of the supplies to the Soviet embassy in Tokyo Thursday.
A whirlwind hit the Boso Peninsula near Tokyo Tuesday night, injuring 78 people and destroying 1,500 houses in 6 cities and 1 town in the region. According to police, it is the worst whirlwind-caused damage since the end of World War II.
In Mobara, Chiba Prefecture, the town most seriously lashed by the stormy winds, 75 people were reported injured, including 7 who were seriously injured. Some 700 houses were reported damaged or destroyed. Downed electricity poles and severed cables blacked out 4,000 households in northern Mobara last night. In Kamagawa, Chiba Prefecture, 130 houses were reportedly damaged. Locals are now busy repairing their houses with the help of relatives. In Japan, more than 10 instances of whirlwinds are reported annually. This year, however, as of today, 19 whirlwind incidents have already been reported, the highest number in 10 years.
2 North Korean stowaways were found aboard a Singapore-registered freighter which arrived in Kyushu. After learning that the two are seeking asylum in South Korea, the government is now studying the case and considering making them leave on the same freighter they stowed away on, rather than granting them permission to land.
Immigration Bureau officials say the two are males, aged 33 and 35. They quote the pair as saying that they both secretly boarded the Singaporean freighter at Qinhuangdao in China, and that they are seeking asylum in South Korea. However, the defectors are reported to have neither passports nor crew identification certificates. It is reported that the two defectors are not seeking asylum in Japan and have no political background. Taking these factors into account, the Japanese government wants to follow established international procedures by refusing their entry and sending them away on the freighter they had boarded. The ship is scheduled to leave for Sakhalin tomorrow.
Economy and science.
On the Tokyo Foreign Exchange Market, the U.S. dollar hovered around the 132 yen level before closing at 131.88 yen. That's up 0.13 yen from yesterday's close. On the Tokyo Stock Exchange, in anticipation of easing monetary policy, trading company and financial stocks, as well as large capital stocks such as steel and shipbuilding, were heavily bought. As a result, the average of 225 selected issues regained the 24,000 yen mark at one time. But after late profit taking, the average closed at 23,999.41 yen, up 42.44 yen from yesterday's finish, marking its sixth consecutive day-to-day rise. 7 major Japanese oil companies announced today they will uniformly lower wholesale prices of gasoline and other oil products.
The companies say the charges will be reduced because crude oil prices have dropped recently. Nippon Oil Company and 6 other firms say they'll cut the prices of oil products such as gasoline, kerosene, and light oil from 2.10 yen, or 1.6 U.S. cents, to 3.40 yen, or 2.6 cents per liter. The companies attribute the reductions to last month's fall in average crude oil import prices, which dropped by about $4 per barrel over the previous month. Among the 11 Japanese oil companies, Idemitsu Petrochemical Company and 2 other firms announced on Tuesday that they will also cut their prices. Esso Seikyu Company, the only firm which has not yet reduced its prices, is expected to follow the trend in the near future.
International Trade and Industry Minister Kabu Muto urged Japan's electric power companies to act more decisively in constructing new nuclear power plants.
The request made today reflects the government's intention to increase Japan's nuclear power supply capacity 2.3-fold by the end of the year 2010. The government has chosen nuclear power as a primary alternative energy source to replace oil. In order to achieve the target supply level set by the government, more than 20 new nuclear power plants need to be built. However, various campaigns against these construction plans are dampening the prospects for their completion on schedule. The electric power industry says it will promote nuclear power generation by stepping up its public relations efforts.
The Coal Mining Council, which advises the Trade and Industry Minister, has come up with outlines of a future policy on coal supply. The outlines include a step-by-step reduction of domestic coal production.
The Council views the 1990s as the final period in the restructuring of the domestic coal industry. The Council points to the need to lower the benchmark price of domestic coal. The outline states that the current price, which electric power companies are asked to pay for domestic coal, is more than twice that of imported coal. The Council also suggests that cheaper coal should be traded freely. Another recommendation is that the government should revise the emergency law on the streamlining of the coal mining industry in order to support diversification and restructuring within coal companies. The Council plans to present its final conclusions by next June.
A private research institute reports that liabilities incurred through corporate bankruptcies in October totaled 315 billion yen, or some 2.4 billion US dollars, almost 4 times higher than last year. The huge monthly rise is attributed to